To the Board of Selectmen meeting for our special meeting that we're having today on today's Thursday, July 30th. So, well, let's at least start with an invocation.
With me. Lord God, we come before you this morning in acknowledgement of your sovereignty. Lord, today we ask for your guidance and wisdom in the decisions that we make for town government. Father, we thank you for the many blessings you bestow upon each of us and our community. We thank you in all these things, and we pray to you in the manner we were each taught, just as I was taught to pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Do we do this in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good morning. So we have one particular topic here that we have on our agenda, and that's to have some discussion over our interviews for the selection of the fire chief and come up with a decision upon selection of the next fire chief here. So for those who have been kind of watching through the process, we ended the other night with 3 candidates being interviewed, and our purpose here today was to come up with a decision upon which that new fire chief, who that should be. So I'd like to just go around the room and hear some feedback from my fellow board members, and then I'll provide some feedback as well, and see if we can get a discussion going to help us with our decision process here. So Gary, I'll give you the floor if you would just kind of give us your perspective on anything that you'd like to share based on what you heard the other night and some of the background that you've done.
Well, the other night, as we went through, I did rank the guys. 2 of them I ranked on a much higher scale than one. But that was very close. But if you remember in my questioning, I had said that I personally at this time was not ready for a new chief. And I base a lot of that on the questions that Mike wrote and the answers that we got in the surveys. I know Dave and I here had many more surveys to go over than what you guys saw. So that might be part of it, unless you've reached out and gotten them since. But the candidate that I probably liked the best was the first one. But yet, in my personal reviews on who the top 5 picks should be, I didn't rank his essay questions as going forward. And I'd like to just read a little bit from some of these, if I can find the correct spot. And, well, his Mr. Mitchell's response to question 2. And let's see, he didn't put the questions on his thing. I don't know, Mike, have you got them right there?
Hey, Gary, I get a copy here.
Well, just so that you're familiar, I don't want to read the whole thing, but perhaps just familiarize it with it.
Talking essay? Yeah.
The essay questions, yes, not the interview questions. I think Rusty wrote them out, yeah. So it was about all municipal departments competing for the same dollars from taxpayers of the community, and community engagement is critical to developing the support required for funding and a long-term mission of the fire department, and I'll just say so on. And his response to that was, I would engage the community leaders, residents, and department members through a committee for the purpose of developing a strategic plan to meet the short-term and long-term goals of the department. And that's how he begins with, and he sort of follows that right through. And one of the things that I wrote about it was more committees and study when I was done reading that. But I feel that that sort of falls into part, Phil, of what you've been talking about as what you'd like to do here before you leave. You'd like a better strategic plan. You know, I don't know if it was a strategic plan or the master plan that you said you wanted to work on and develop more short-term and long-term goals. And so, as I said before, because of a lot of this response and that, I feel that it'd be better that we work on this, we hire somebody as an interim while we, as our government leaders, decide what we feel is the best. And as I said in some of my questions the other night, there's other aspects that are coming along that we have to deal with. And so that's where I'm at. I'm still at there. You know, if it ends up that the board decides we have to pick someone today, I will act in the voting procedure.
Right.
And I'll wait till after our deliberations, you know, and hear what we've each got to say to help further make up my mind. But I don't at this point have one candidate, but I am stuck, I will say to the board, with candidate 1 or 2.
Okay. Gary, thanks for sharing that.
Okay.
Dave?
Well, in my mind, coming out of that, the interview process, for me, there was one clear winner in the process. It was close. I think Rusty did a real good job, well prepared, articulate on the on all the questions, except for one. And I think in order to have my support fully, the issue of the 2 full-time employments has to be resolved. Would I vote for candidate number 1, Mr. Mitchell? Yep. If the will and pleasure of the board was really there, I probably would acquiesce to that, to hiring him and giving him a chance. But I think, overall, Rusty's been involved in the community. Has given his heart and soul to this town, and I just can't. The only thing is, like I said, I can't get past the two full-time positions. How we're going to juggle Wakefield, and looking at some of the information, as a matter of fact, I was the one that worked very diligently and put a lot of work in on the actual the current chief's contract, and it says you need to be available to the town at all times. And I'm not so sure that, again, I don't know if there's any state statutes or any other thing or bylaw that says you can't have, 2 full-time positions. So that concerns me. So that would make me hold back. But as far as the interview process, I thought Rusty was the top person. So that's where I'm at. I think if I could make a suggestion, and I know this is not what this board wants to hear, is I think we have to go, if again, in terms of getting past the 2 full-time employments, I think we have to go out and search for more candidates. Because I wasn't, again, I thought there was a clear winner, but I was not blown away. But again, if this board feels that we have, that's a matter of public safety, then we need to have a chief in place, then I would go along with the board's, majority of the board's vote. So that's where I am.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Doug?
Well, I'd like to thank all of the candidates that interviewed with us. I thought the information they provided was informative. Certainly, my decision process fell between 2 candidates, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Ricker. My primary concerns with Mr. Ricker are the dual employment. I mean, there's other things that came up in my due diligence, but the primary concern is the dual employment. And I've learned enough in my life is that you cannot be effective serving 2 masters, and that would be a real burden for me to move Rusty forward because of that. Mr. Mitchell, I thought, presented very well. sometimes I wonder, maybe a new person coming into a situation is more easily accepted. I know in my life, when I worked at the phone company and other places of employment, when I worked with people that were moved up in the ranks and all of a sudden they became my manager, sometimes that was a more difficult process to handle. It's one thing I would hate to do is put someone forward and then set them up for failure. So between the two, I think that if we vote to select a new chief, today I would have to go with Mr. Mitchell, primarily because of the dual employment situation. And when asked about that and asked where his priorities would be, Rusty stated his priority would be wherever he was when the priority came up. So if he was in Wakefield and the priority was here, well, he's in Wakefield, and that kind of disturbed me. So I think that we do need to have a dedicated person full-time as the chief. I think it's best for the town, and that's not to take anything away from Mr. Ricker, because he has put his heart and soul into the community. Every time I go someplace, he's out there. But we have to take the position of what we want as a chief and move that forward. And I just can't move forward on a dual employment situation.
Great, Doug. All right, thanks for that insight. Stu, what are your thoughts?
Morning, gentlemen. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I thank all the candidates for coming in, and there is I've put a lot of time and effort into this. I've interviewed the chief a number of times. I've interviewed Mr. Farrell, or discussed it with Mr. Farrell. I've talked to a lot of members of the department. Fire chief, police chief. This is not without lots of due diligence. Echoing the concerns that I'm hearing so far about the dual employment, just looking here in the contract, I'm going to read what we have for the fire chief's contract currently.
Great, excellent.
It says the fire chief shall be available to the town at all times of the day throughout the year, except during periods of illness or approved vacation or other approved leave, and shall provide the town with sufficient means by which it may contact and communicate with him when he or she is off duty or out of town for any reason. The outside employment clause 3 says the fire chief understands and agrees that his primary employment shall be with the town of Georgetown, etc., etc., etc. That alone disqualifies Mr. Ricker. I'm a huge fan of Mr. Ricker. I did not hear when he was asked 2 or 3 times. I didn't hear a direct answer when we asked him about the employee and his full-time job down at Wakefield. What I heard was, "I'll do what I need to do." Well, I don't know what that means. That could mean, "I'll do what I need to do," as in, if we're trying to figure it out and trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. In my mind, that could be, "Oh, well, that's fine, I'll do this and not do Wakefield." Or it could mean just the opposite. "I'll do what I need to do for my family, and that means I'm going to stay employed and serve 2 masters." I've gotten quite a bit of support, notifications on email and Facebook and whatnot for Mr. Ricker. Fantastic community guy. When I look at his resume, I was on the fire department. I've served with Mr. Ricker. I wouldn't want to have anybody else with me when I'm on a fire ground, or if I'm running into a burning building, or if I'm on an EMS call. Rusty knows what he's doing. He is He is an tactical operations guy, fantastic, knows his stuff, lots going on there. You know, spent a lot of time in the department, been around, he's done uh, multiple roles, pretty much everything except for the chief's position. My concerns beyond the employee are that I don't feel he's ready to be chief from an administrative point of view, and I have some concerns about leadership. And I can go into those if you want, but I don't think he's ready. I applaud everything that he does, and I applaud everything that his family has done, and he's a great guy, community guy, and I would hope that, you know, if we make a decision today that we would serve, he would continue to serve. However, I believe if we hire Mr. Ricker to be the chief, there are clear areas that I'm not comfortable with. I don't believe he's got the skill set yet. Doesn't mean he can't over time develop them. But I think if we put Mr. Ricker in this position right now, at this snapshot in time, that we would be setting him up for failure. And I don't believe it would be in the best interest of our town or of our fire department. And it pains me to say that, because I, like everybody else on this board, I'm the hometown guy. I'm looking for the hometown guy. But based on all my due diligence and feedback and everything, I just don't feel Mr. Ricker has one, set himself up correctly and appropriately and fully to be the next chief. Additionally, I think there's more education that Mr. Ricker would need to pursue. Mr. Mitchell has, you know, education. He's got a long, you know, sheet of accomplishments. He's also going for his master's in public administration. I think that's important. When I talk to the chief, one of his primary duties is administration. And I asked the question, how much time do you spend administering? And if you've ever sat in the chief's office, he's got paperwork all over the place. I mean, it's mountains of paperwork. And he indicated to me 15 to 20 hours, if not more. I asked him, how long do you look at, or how often do you look at the budget? And his response was 2 to 3 times a week, because it's a rolling, you know, almost a living entity that needs to be managed on a weekly basis. And when we asked the question of Mr. Ricker, he said that he would meet monthly. That indicates to me that, one, he doesn't quite understand the administrative side, doesn't quite understand what's involved in it. And I would think if he had set himself up, he would be fully versed on that side of the equation, because the administration side of it is huge. And I think Rusty's strengths, both having worked with him on the department, seeing his resume, there is not administration anywhere on that resume. There isn't budgeting on that resume. I just don't believe he's in a position right now to be the strongest candidate. Do I want him? I would love to, but I cannot support him at this point. So my decision would be for Mr. Mitchell.
All right, well, thanks, Stu. So I don't necessarily want to repeat everything that's been said here. I do concur with a bunch of the comments that are out there. I will say that this one, you know, the pay that we offer for this position is not necessarily going to get us all of the most qualified candidates out there. I will say that all 3 candidates are superbly qualified, I think, to take the position as chief in Georgetown. Yes, some candidates have much stronger experience than others that came through, but I think that any one of them could certainly do the job here. I guess one of the few things that I was looking for in any of the candidates, one was to make sure that it was a good cultural fit and would fit within, you know, the demeanor and the culture the Georgetown Fire Department and town government here. The second certainly was the experience levels that they've had. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have been a fire chief before, but have been on a career path, an education path, and have performed many of the duties as a surrogate for the fire chief in the past. And lastly, the interview process, certainly some of the responses that I heard, I think it is important for me to get a sense of understanding who these people really are. Again, I think all of them are certainly well qualified to take the job. We have an incumbent, deputy fire chief, who I was trying to find more reasons why not to hire him as opposed to hire him. And I had all the reasons in the world of why we should hire him. And Deputy Chief Ricker has certainly done a lot of good things for this town. The good and bad about having the in-town person is you also all know all the history of what's that individual, and not that there's been any particular events that have been negative for him, but that based on the feedback that I've gotten from some of the folks that I spoke to, that his peers, I got a mix of highly confident and positive information, as well as stuff we should be aware of in terms of what it would take for him to be successful in the role. There's some respect issues from some folks down there. I don't think it's anything purposeful down there. I'm trying to be as open as possible in terms of some of the conversation I have. I just have to think that it's his style. It's Rusty's style. It's him as a strong, confident leader down there. I could get over a lot of that stuff because I think we as a board could work with Rusty and develop him into the chief that needs to be down there. I think we could do that. I think that he knows enough to take care of the day-to-day operations and learn the administration and the finances and budgeting, all that stuff. I think that's pretty easy to do with the support of Mike and all of us. One thing I just can't get around is someone constantly working 88 hours a week. One, I don't think it's fair to that individual, whether it's Rusty or anyone else. I can't work 88 hours a week in 1 week. Anything after 65, and I'm a mess. No, that's just me. But 88 hours a week, that's superhuman, to be quite frank with you. And I think we'd just burn someone out if that person came in and had to do that day in and day out. The other part is, as Stu and others have said here, I think contractually we'd have a challenge to that, just because, yeah, we certainly could change the contract, but our primary, the role of the fire chief is the primary role for the fire chief for the town of Georgetown and no other job. Yeah, we certainly understand because of the pay, it might require an individual that will have to get a part-time job to supplement that. I got that, but this 88 hours full every week, and 40 hours a week, that's the minimum. And I'm sure Chief Beardsley doesn't work 40 hours a week. I'm not sure any one of us works 40 hours a week in our job. So let's say a 50-hour week, and we're up to 100 hours a week. I mean, I think that's just not fair to the taxpayers of Georgetown. It's not fair to the chief, if it were Rusty Ricker, not fair to the men and women underneath him, and I think it would be a mistake for us to do that because of that issue. Again, all the reasons up front I could get over, and we could work with Rusty. It's that last reason that I just I could not confidently support Rusty in the position of fire chief. So I'll close there. Unless anyone has any other comments, I think I'd like to see if we get a nomination for any of the other fire, anyone that they would like to select.
If I might, just a little follow-up, and just like on the issue of the dual jobs, we could leave that up to the candidate also. Let that be his decision, not knowing what he would do. If the job was offered, it could be offered with the aspect of this is your primary job. Just just to put that out there. But also, just as what I'm saying, that I don't think we're ready yet ourselves as a board, unless there's been something updated. I've got what Mike gave us when he put the job out there for submissions. And also, I guess this is the definition of the job description. And this thing is dated, if they look this up, 6/10/08, and nowhere in here, they think, does it mention anything about an ambulance service. So this isn't even up to date. And yet we're hiring a fire chief on, I just don't think we as a town are up to date enough on what we expect out of a fire chief. And to me, that echoes that we could be setting anybody up for failure if we're expecting more of them than what they're aware of. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make one comment.
Yep.
A lot of the discussion has been coming back to what we're paying for the position. And I still, and I've been adamant about this, you know, if we're gonna put somebody in place for the next 3 years, I think over that 3 years, we really have, and to Gary's point, take a real good hard look at the job description. Also, we're faced with, you know, union labor now. You know, if this department's gonna evolve into something, and I don't wanna say more professional, because I think they're very professional. I think from the administrative aspect of it, and the management piece of it, and the structure of it, is beginning to look more and more like a city department. And, you know, what city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts city is paying $60,000 to their fire chief? You know, you offer out $60,000 and you get back what you get back. It's not even comparable to the other full-time leadership position in the town. Police chief, Mike's salary, it's not even close. So I urge this board, if we make a decision today, and to me it appears that it's leaning towards Mr. Mitchell, that over the period of time, we do some work and maybe have a study group within, you know, a committee within this committee to figure that out. Because, you know, I can't see somebody staying here long-term unless they're very close to retirement age, because I think Mr. Mitchell will probably use this as a stepping stone to a larger chief's position. So we're gonna be constantly turning this over. The salary issue needs to be addressed. And that's, I'll leave it at that. Just my feelings.
I completely agree, and my expectation was, look, I don't want to hire a person for one term. It's a retention issue right now. I mean, yes, it's a hiring issue as well, but it will be a retention issue
Right.
if we don't tackle that.
Could I comment, though, that if we held off, even as Dave suggested when he first spoke earlier, we might get a whole different row of candidates if we were offering a better salary than what was put out there. So, I just, at this point, I fail to see what we've got to lose by waiting a little bit.
Can I comment? Yeah, go ahead.
You know, on that topic of, I agree with you, Dave. From a long-term strategic point of view, yeah, we absolutely have to review the salary. The succession plan that we saw over in the police department, I thought was exceptional, and the way it should be done. And I didn't really see that here in this department, and I don't know why, but I didn't see it. But in terms of now that there's going to be a union in the fire department, that's going to put a lot of strain on the town financially, potentially, and particularly the fire department budget. And I think when we look 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, particularly, that fire department's going to change. It's changing now. While I don't agree with the union part of it, nor the way that it went about and was done. I could spend a whole day on that topic alone, but that job does need to be reviewed, and if we want to review that, I'd certainly be willing and happy to get involved in that or chair a subcommittee on that topic. But it goes hand in hand with our overall strategic plan that we need to do and need to fit all those pieces in. That said, it's probably other departments in the same boat, as far as having to review it and everything like that. I'm concerned if we do hold off, that we've got this union formed and coming along, and I believe we need leadership in that corner office over there at the fire department sooner than later. If we bumped up the pay a little bit, would that increase our candidate pool? Would it give us some other options? Possibly. I just don't think that we want to hold off because of the issues that we've got coming on with union, and just having somebody in that corner office doing what needs to be done is important and vital. So I'd be willing to make a decision today. If we're uncomfortable with that and we don't want to make that decision, or if we do make that decision to hire somebody today, we don't necessarily have to do a 3-year contract right off the bat. I would make recommendation that we could do a 1-year contract. And in fact, I would probably request that we put in, my recommendation would be put in quarterly review with the new chief on the first year, and a quarterly review with the command staff, with us and with the town administrator, and be able to have benchmarks specifically in there that candidate would be directed to deliver on a quarterly basis, to ensure that, one, you guys in this board are comfortable with the direction of it, and two, to ensure that everything's operating there correctly, and to be able to have that flexibility down the road, that maybe year 2 there's a somewhat significant bump in pay, and if we continue with that particular candidate for year 2 and then into year 3, then that gives us lots of options there. So that would be my recommendation if we choose to move on a candidate today, that we maybe don't go with a 3-year contract, that we go with a 1-year contract, and we just say, look, it's not that we're not doing a 3-year contract. We have a 1-year contract that's renewable for 2 years following that, but we've got a new transitional department, or a department that's going through a lot of transition, and we really need to have a close eye on it, and just a lot of eyes on it, and management. And part of that is, I think, what we're talking about is the issue of the pay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm not suggesting you just throw money at the problem. I just want to make
No, I
that
know.
perfectly clear. I think this has to be a well-thought-out, rated and ranked position based on the responsibilities, and come up with a salary that's realistic. That's my issue. I'm not just saying, hey, offer the job at $150,000 and that's the solution. I'm not saying that. Neither would I vote for $150,000.
Right.
But the point is, I think it has to be well thought out. The only comment to the 1 year, I think if we're going to put somebody in place, it almost sets the person up for failure at 1 year. 3 I think is a little long. If we were going to go that route, I would go 2, because I think that it's almost being a lame duck, situation where the chiefs, whoever we put in that position for a 1 year, I think the authority could be undermined. So I think at least with 2 years, it gives that person a little bit more clout a little bit more authority. I think a 1 year, I think his authority may get challenged. And I think to have somebody relocate, if Mr. Mitchell's the candidate, to have somebody relocate for only a 1 year, I don't know if we'd even get him to do that.
Right.
So I think I wouldn't go 3, but if I would go 2, and the only reason I lean towards putting somebody in place is because of everything that we have coming up. I was the person that said, have an interim from the department, but more and more I think about that suggestion. We've got a lot coming up, and we're already behind. We've been holding off. So in the interest of that, maybe we should put somebody in place, or we probably should put somebody in place, but I can't support a 3-year contract. 1 year I think is too short. I would say if Mr. Mitchell is the candidate, it would be a 2-year. I could probably support a 2-year.
Call it the Goldilocks contract.
Yeah.
So guys, I mean, the only thing I would say is this, is that if you're not prepared to give someone a 3-year contract, I wouldn't be prepared to make an offer to that individual at all. You have to have the confidence that this person is going to be able to be successful in the role. I'd like to treat this individual as every other professional we hire here. We have the option, at our will and pleasure, if he's not working out, to document that and terminate a contract with him if it's not working out. I wouldn't even bother thinking about hiring him. I think they're all well-qualified individuals. I think it's up to us as a board to help lead the fire department. And if we're not successful doing it, they won't be successful doing it, that individual and their team. So I wouldn't play around with a contract for 1-2 years. If you're going to do it, let's do it right. We have all the authority we need to do to end a contract with someone who's not performing well for cause, obviously. I don't want someone to think that they're coming in here with something on their back already, a cloud over their head, just coming in here. That's just not fair to that individual. I mean, it's good for us, but for the employee, it's why bother even hiring me if I were given probation like that? I'm just saying that.
Mr. Chair, may I add, is that I think it's important that we have a chief in place that has a stake in the strategic plan of the department going forward and in helping to administer that, along with the leadership of the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. One thing that's constant in life is change, so everything's always changing. And through my corporate life, pay structure was always changing and always reviewed. We can do pretty much what we want to do within that, as long as we don't strap the taxpayer on it. But I don't want to hire somebody based on pay. And it's I just think a chief should be integral to the strategic plan going forward for the community, not an interim.
Gotcha. I get your point, Phil, on that. I could go with a 3-year, and we just have to either do semi-annual or biannually or semi-annually reviews, or quarterly, or 3 reviews a year, or whatever. However we want to set that up. I'm comfortable doing that as long as we do have a good review process in, and I want to see some actual metrics set up for benchmarks for that review,
Yep.
And I'd be happy to work with the chief our current chief to set up what those metrics are, and then work with the new chief once that person might get in to maybe adjust those metrics or add a few things onto that metric scale.
I think, sorry, yeah.
Well, just a question, and it goes as to what Stu just said and what Phil had said earlier. And Phil, you said that it's up to us to lead. And Stu's going down that road with the contract. I want to make sure that we as a board are going to do that, because I have not seen that. I don't know if any one of us has seen Al's review. Because our personnel director does it now, and I didn't even see it last year. So to me, we've taken no leadership in this fire department in the past recent years. We've left it up to the town administrator and the fire chief. So if you're making these statements, let's make sure that we as a board are up to it.
Can I,
I don't disagree with the statement of that you just said, the last thing, but I will disagree in the fact that, one, I think that we have, and I know I've worked with Al on many occasions to help provide direction, ideas, and advice, and answer some questions and help. I've done that
Not
too.
openly and publicly.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that. Leadership isn't just about doing that. And I refer to our personnel director to go through those reviews. The reason why we have him as the personnel director is to do that professionally. I think what you're saying is let's take a step beyond that and get deeper and actually put a process and plan together as a board to support the fire chief. That's what I agree to, and
Okay.
I'd be happy to help in any way, and I think we all would as well.
and it's only just recently, when we eliminated the personnel bylaw and changed things, eliminated the committee,
Right, we
that
had
Mike
been
has done
doing
it. In the past, and I know when I sat in the chair, this whole board submitted to me a fire chief's review and a police chief's review.
We should still be seeing it
Yeah.
and getting copies. We asked for them.
Right. Well, I mean, that's easily done if you
Yeah.
speak with Mike, but to my point is that it does take a lot of work, and, are we getting too deep into I wanna caution this board, we are a board of oversight. We are not day-to-day operational people.
Agreed.
And so I would caution, again, be careful what you wish for. We had difficulty as a board just reviewing our police chief, town administrator, and fire chief on time on an annual basis. Timing wise. And that's not fair to the candidate, or the person in the position, and it's not fair, to us as leaders. So be careful what you wish for, or what you put in place, because if you don't back it up, to Gary's point, it's just an epic failure. So, but I will say, again, and that's only since recently, and I wanna say, is that a year, Mike, as the years go by, now that you've been doing the fire chief's review?
I did everybody's, beginning last year,
Yeah.
close of last fiscal year.
Right. So before that, we did them, and I had candid conversations with the chief, and honest conversations through his review process, so. Anyway, I just be careful about it.
One last comment. Mike, if we hire somebody today, what would your recommendation be on a review schedule? Couple times a year?
Well,
3 times a year?
our
annually?
personnel policy would call for a 90-day review. Because technically, they're a probationary employee for the first 90 days.
Mhm.
So you'd have a 90-day review, and then another review in 9 months, for the first annual one. So twice in the first year.
Do you feel that that's sufficient?
Yes, I do. I mean, obviously, I agree with you, metrics have to be set, goals and objectives, and when somebody's not, meeting them or falling behind, then you have to course correct during the year. I mean, that's not the only time. I mean, Al and I speak,
All the time.
several times a week, as I do with almost every other department. But, the police chief's in my office every other day at least, and then Al's about the same. So, and I see the others on a daily basis, not as, a manager, but as a coworker, and
Yep.
so,
So you would be comfortable with that?
yeah, I mean, you gotta give the person time to get settled and get their plan in order.
Mhm. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mike. So, Mike, where this is a new contract, in the past, they've always been rolling contracts, so the probationary period never applied. So if we put a contract in place with any candidate, can that contract be voided, or the terms of the contract for separation don't kick in until after the probationary period?
Well, we have there's one big difference, is we have the strong chief legislation. So that would also come into play. It's a combination of contractual law and statutory law.
So, but that doesn't answer the question, unfortunately. So if
No,
it's a 90-day probationary period,
No, the anniversary date is the first day of work. That's how it works with all our employees. Your anniversary doesn't start 90 days after you do.
right, but so I'm just going ahead. If after 90 days, we put a contract in place for 3 years with an individual for this position, and after 90 days we feel like, you know what, it's working out great, fine. But and on the other hand, because we could be faced with this, it's really not working. If we release that person at that point in time, it's just their employee at will. The contract doesn't really kick in until after the probationary period. I think that's maybe a legal counsel.
No, the contract and the statute apply from day one.
Okay, well, that's my question. All right. So, in a management position, really, the 90-day probationary period really doesn't exist in a
It's a
contractual.
review.
It's just a review, it's not a.
And if it's subpar, it becomes a documented, during a due process of terminating somebody too. You need a paper trail.
Okay, I got it.
So gentlemen, is there anyone at this point willing to nominate anyone to enter into contract negotiations with us?
Mr. Chair, I move to hire or extend an offer to Fred A. Mitchell Jr. As position of Fire Chief of Georgetown Fire Department.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second for Fred Mitchell. Any further discussion? All those in favor say, I'm gonna actually a roll call vote for this.
Discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Are you closing the nominations, or are you?
Well, it will be closed if he gets elected, but if he doesn't, then we'll keep going.
Okay, sometimes the process is to ask for the things and see if there's more than one, but
Okay, so,
if there's more than one nomination, is that how you asked for it? Did you ask for, what did you ask for?
is there more than one nomination?
Okay.
See,
Thank
how
you
would
for-
we know that?
Thank you for that.
Okay, all right, so we have a nomination, we have a motion and a second on the floor to nominate Fred Mitchell as our next fire chief. I guess, all those in favor, we need a vote on this, say aye.
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 Nay.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, customarily, I know that, well, not with this board, but other boards, when hiring a sensitive position like this, even after the vote, that the board consider a unanimous vote coming out of, reconsideration for vote.
Open for more than one.
Because, I think that we want to send a clear message now that we've come to a consensus in all of our deliberations that we're behind the chief, if he accepts the position. So I would just throw that out there to the board, that maybe we reconsider the vote and come out of this unanimous. Just my opinion.
I'm gonna just ask Gary. Gary, would you reconsider?
I do feel it'd be well that if we went unanimous, but he's gonna know my feelings anyway. So I'm not sure, it's not.
It's more symbolic than
It's not Mr. Mitchell that I'm against. It's the hiring process right now where we're at. But if that's where we're there, he was our only candidate nominated, I would reconsider, yes.
Okay. Mike, do I need to withdraw that?
Would it be easier if I just reconsider my vote? Can I do that?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that'd be good.
And in reconsideration of my vote, I will change from a nay to a yay and make it unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, Gary. All right, so listen, I know that, you know, Rusty's a friend to all of us here in town and so many others, and it's going to be disappointing for Rusty. I think that he understood, you know, the main reason is just that the working relationship with his other employer. My hope and goal is to put him in a path to become, you know, a successor to the chief as well, and I appreciate everyone's interest in going through the process of the selection process with us. So,
Mr. Chair?
yeah. Hang on one sec. So I just want to, I do want to just finish my thoughts and congratulate Fred for earning the right to enter into contract offer with us. So again, I think any one of those gentlemen would be very effective at doing the job. Others would do it in a little different way than each other, and I appreciate everyone's time here today and your deep thought and consideration and time that you put in to this decision. Go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
I can say that this decision process was really, my heart was quite conflicted, because we all would like to see the hometown board, you know, get moved forward.
Yeah.
This was really very difficult, and I'd like to congratulate Mr. Mitchell. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Ricker, and I do expect that the professionals in the Georgetown Fire Department will welcome Mr. Mitchell and with open arms and work to achieve his success. And I thank them for all their service to this community and the degree of professionalism they have exhibited. But that's all what I have to say.
Mr. Chair, one comment following up with Doug, and again, yeah, congratulations to Mr. Mitchell and to Mr. Ricker, who is a friend to all of us and a fantastic community person that has given and does give his heart and soul to this town. I would like to make sure that we follow up with Mr. Ricker and ensure that he's on a path and set up a good succession plan. And I would hope Mr. Ricker would continue to serve in the fire department, and that we can help guide and share with him specific areas that we felt needed more development in his future ability to be able to be a fire chief and have a very successful succession plan within the department. Because like Doug said, you know, you go into this process and we're all rooting for the hometown guy or gal. And it was a very hard decision, you know, personally for me, having served with Mr. Ricker, having served on the fire department, not to be able to recommend him for this chief's position at this point in time.
Stu. Any other closing comments before we adjourn? No? All right. Well, I want to get excited for Mr. Mitchell to come into town and help him through the contract process. So, Mike, I'll work with you on that and see if we can get a contract going here. And I want to thank all of those who were part of the interview process, because I know it wasn't just the finalists, and all the chiefs and others who helped participate in that process. I think you guys did a really good job. And to my colleagues here, thanks for the hard work you guys put in. And I know this was not an easy decision, So I'm looking forward to moving forward and helping the fire organization get what they need to do to go forward. So if I get a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, have a great day, everyone. Thanks very much.